The world is moving faster and faster, and our list of priorities seems to be growing longer and longer, and we're given less resources and less time to achieve or accomplish those priorities. So in these dynamics, it is so important to understand how can you re-engage an employee that seems to be completely checked out, not caring about moving their work forward. Well, by the end of this video, you're going to be armed with a practical way to frame a one-on-one conversation with an employee just like that. Let's get it. In this video, I'm breaking down a very practical framework you can use when you're engaging in a one-on-one conversation with an employee that just seems all but checked out of work, completely disengaged and apathetic. This framing will promote a better understanding of this individual, authentic connection between you and this individual, and aligned actions to help re-engage them. The first step when you're engaging in this conversation is to make the implicit explicit. And what I mean by that is plainly stating that you have taken notice of the fact that they appear disengaged, that they're not delivering their work the way that they were at one point in time, that they seem to be a lot more apathetic and really not showing up the way that you would hope they would within the workplace. Once you've plainly stated this observation, plainly communicated to them that you've taken notice of it, you're ready to move into the second portion of the structure. And this is a series of questions to ask within the conversation. Now, I can't stress the importance of one element enough, and that is you must step into this conversation with the ability and the intention to listen, to have open heart and open mind. Don't step into this conversation with anger, with annoyance, perhaps being blinded by their lack of engagement or their lack of motivation. Step into the conversation wanting to understand why that individual has been feeling the way that they feel, why they've been showing up into the workplace the way that they've been showing up. So with that, let's get into a three-part series of questions that you can use as you move through this conversation. Question number one. I would like to understand how things have been going with you. Are you open to sharing with me how you're doing? Sometimes when we notice or see an employee that doesn't care about their work, we're only seeing the top 10% of the iceberg, right? I love that analogy. So often we can only see what they're expressing or what's on the surface. Sometimes there's so much more that's going on with that individual, and oftentimes outside of the workplace. Maybe there's challenges happening in their personal lives, in their relationships, maybe health conditions, health problems with themselves, or perhaps with loved ones. These are the dynamics, the elements that we just don't see, and something that they don't readily talk about. You know, I remember when I transitioned to a role for a company in Boston. And at the time, I was moving from Cincinnati into Boston, and I was moving with my girlfriend. And about a month or two into the new role and into the transition, we broke up. And this was a long-term relationship, and it wrecked me. And I found myself feeling a lot more disengaged, a lot more apathetic at work because I felt like my world was crumbling because of what was happening outside of my work. And I have to tell you, the most important and memorable conversations that I had in the workplace during that time were those peers and colleagues that truly cared and asked me how the transition was going. How are things going with me in the move as I'm transitioning out of my old role from Cincinnati and now into the new role in Boston? And they created this space of trust such that it allowed me to be comfortable sharing what was happening in my personal life. And honestly, those conversations are what kept me engaged, what kept me wanting to deliver and actually engage with my colleagues and in the work. When you can ask this question in a very sincere, open-hearted way and give individuals the opportunity to share what might be going on with them, what they might be struggling with, that's going to help you to understand them and they feel valued, that you're seeking to understand them as well. And so often it's the very first step that's required to re-engage that individual. Now, the one other thing that I'll say about after you've posed this question is not to immediately jump into problem solving, right? I know I have a tendency to do this. When they start talking about things that they're struggling with, maybe something that they're challenged by inside or outside of work, I immediately want to say, well, have you thought about this? Have you done this? You could do that. That's often not what they're looking for. And honestly, it's not the purpose or the intent behind asking this question. Rather, it's you seeking to understand, to listen, and then play back what you have understood, notably the way that they're feeling, and name the emotion. It sounds like you're feeling frustrated. It sounds like you're feeling angry, right? Name that emotion, and then what you understand is driving that emotion. This is not a time for you to offer advice or to try to solve a problem. The second question to ask is, when was the last time you felt like you were doing your best work? And what were the circumstances? This question will not only help to surface those areas or aspects of their work that they really enjoy, that really light them up, but it also will invite them to begin visiting and maybe getting into that emotional energy of doing the type of work that they enjoy. When you even talk about the type of work that you do that really lights you up, you create this type of energy within yourself, right? I know, and you can ask my wife, anytime I talk about my work and maybe a successful keynote or, a client engagement, I just get lit up because I love it so much. And so by asking that question, that's going to invite them into that energy. And it began the conversation to understand, okay, if that's what really lit you up, maybe how can we change your work plan to mirror a little bit more of what you truly enjoy and what truly gives you energy? Which brings me to the third and final question. But before that, I actually want to hear from you. So if you could, in the comments, answer this question for yourself. When was the last time that you remember doing your best work? And maybe it's something that you're doing today, but comment below about the type of work that really lights you up. I always love to learn about the community. All right, let's get back into it. The third and final question. What do you need from me to enable you to do your best work each and every day? This is such a powerful question that I just love for a lot of different reasons. But first, I got to give credit where credit is due. So this is actually one of those coaching questions that Daniel Pink writes about, the New York Times bestselling author. This is one of those powerful questions that he says every manager needs to have in their arsenal. And for me, what this does is open up the conversation to not only invite that individual to think about what does need to change in order for me to start doing my best work, but also the opportunity to ask for support, to mention what help looks like to get to that point. So not only are they going to have a role in creating what this might be, but so will you. And they're the ones that are going to define it, not you. The best thing you can do is put them back in control of their work, reaching for the type of days, the type of work that really lights them up and gives them energy. And then, of course, conveying that knowing that you were there to support them. You want them to stand on your shoulders, supporting them as they move forward and creating those types of days that light them up, doing the type of work that they're truly enjoying. So before I move into the final step of this whole framework, I do just want to give voice to the really difficult situation when you pose this question. So what if that employee feeds back, I've always hated this job. I've never been lit up in this work. This is not the type of work that lights me up. If that's the situation, then I would actually invite them to start creating or dimensioning what a role might be that would give them that energy. And maybe it's not anything close to what they're currently doing, but know that you can communicate how you'll work with them to perhaps find or identify a role in your team or your organization, or maybe in other organizations around the company that they might be better suited for. But as you're moving through that journey, the deliverables that are on their current work plan have to get accomplished. And it's almost like you can frame it as a prerequisite. We can't get you into this role that you think you're better suited for until we get these deliverables done. So let's get these knocked out, and then in a parallel path, I can work with you to try to find a role that you might be better suited for that might give you more energy. And that can be a part of your follow-up. So the final and maybe one of the most important aspects of this framework is to align on the next steps. Align on the actions that either that individual or both you and that individual are going to take moving forward, and schedule a follow-up conversation. on the status of those actions and the progress that's being made. Make this a continued conversation, right? To continue that level of engagement, and just make it crystal clear on what that individual is going to go off and do, and then what you also are going to do as a part of what you learned in the conversation. And I can't tell you, just by having this type of conversation, by having some of these actions, it should invite a little bit more energy, a little bit more engagement, because they can begin seeing either a light at the end of the tunnel, or knowing that their work is going to begin to shift and change, that's going to inspire more of that high vibe type of energy. Before you go, I do have something else for you. It's completely for free, so you don't have to get out a credit card or anything like that. I'm not going to charge you for this, but I actually want to gift you a free recording of a keynote, a portion of a keynote that I delivered to a client going through tremendous change, internal and external. And specifically the portion of the keynote where I'm sharing data and insights on how to lead others when going through challenging change and trying to inspire self-actualized growth within them. And I want to offer you this portion of the keynote completely for free. Now, of course, this is a keynote message that clients pay me for to deliver all over the world, but it's yours today completely for free. All you got to do is click on the link below. I want to make sure you have the data, the research, the insights to inspire and empower your greatest growth through even your toughest change challenges. I'm Cassandra Worthy, and until we meet again, keep growing and keep rocking.